Welcome everybody back to Latino Free Minds. I'm Daniel. I'm with my co-host Danny. How you doing, Danny?
Doing good.
Cool. How's your week?
It was good. Busy at work, but glad to be talking to you.
For sure. Same here. So something I wanted to say or mention at the top of the show, just to kind of, brief little intro. Just want to once again thank everyone for your support. Something that's very cool and we kind of weren't expecting right away, but our first two episodes had over 275,000 downloads. So we thought that was cool. So we appreciate the support. Like I said, we weren't expecting that high of a number right off the bat, but that's what we're seeing, and we appreciate that. And like we said at the beginning, is we want to learn here, and then we want to have conversations that will hopefully have you and others having these conversations as well, so we can all learn together. And we're just trying to make a difference as much as we can with what we know. And we're just really excited to be able to do this, and hopefully you continue to join in with us. So as you guys have heard in the first two episodes, we've been talking about manipulation and how manipulation is used against us and how it's happening, and the tools that have been used for that manipulation. So the last episode we focused on schools and how it happens there, and in this next episode, this third episode that we're doing now, we want to focus on some of these tools right here. It's going to be a few of them, but in a sense they all tie together somehow. It's television, so we're talking movies, series, TV shows, sports, celebrities, athletes, musicians, the music there as well, and social media. So those tools right there are tools that can be used against us in our own home. So when we focused on school, it was more, somewhere that it can happen outside of your home while your kid is or should be getting educated, right? These other tools here is what can happen at home if we're not paying attention and if we're not focused on what our kids are being exposed to. So what we want to do now is keep the progression going. I think the next episode will cover more of politicians and news, because that affects more young adults to adults. So we'll just kind of keep the progression going through age, I guess you can say. So a lot of the key points that we discussed in the school will apply to these scenarios. And as parents, as we were talking about in the last episode, is we have to have control of what our kids are exposed to. And in a sense, we know that we can't shelter our kids forever, but at the same time, it's our responsibility, especially with certain topics as parents, to cover those with our kids when the time is appropriate.
Yeah, and the same applies when we were talking about this in the other episodes, is that in school they start early. So if, one of the things that we noticed, my wife and I, is that when the kids were little and they were watching cartoons, we saw the difference in the attitudes in the cartoons when we were younger. The way that these cartoon characters talk to each other is really rude.
Mm-hmm.
The tone that they use is aggressive and it's rude, and it's like not good natured. It's giving them a bad example, if you will, in the way that they communicate with each other. And that's something that we noticed right off the bat when the kids were little. And we made a conscious effort to not allow them to watch those, specific cartoons and stuff like that. So it does make sense that when we look at kids outside of our home, whether it's, if we're at the bowling alley or at the store or something like that, they're not as polite as they used to be. And I'm speculating now. I'm just kind of like putting
Hmm.
pieces together and trying to connect dots. But to me, it makes sense, in a way where what they see young, and if we don't pay attention to it and make a change, as a parent, we allow them to see those examples. So I kind of correlated to that with the way that kids are these days.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because as a parent having young kids right now is, yeah, if you see some cartoons, the way they talk, even the words they say or how they say things, it's real. It's inappropriate for kids that age, right? You don't want kids to be telling anybody, "Hey, you're stupid," but you hear that on the cartoon, right?
Cartoons, yeah,
So it it is a different. That was back then when your kids were younger, and now mine. So it's like it. There's some things
it's
that,
probably gotten
yeah,
worse.
it's gotten worse for sure. So we try to keep control of what what they're watching because, yeah, we don't want them exposed to that because if they see a a cartoon or something or a character that's being rude and maybe they think it's funny and then maybe without them knowing it they start being rude because in their mind it's somehow funny. uh we don't want that happening. So
Yeah,
and it's kind of it's tougher nowadays because there's more access with the technological advances that we have today versus back then. There's way more access to entertainment, right? You can use all kinds of streaming networks or streaming platforms to get entertainment, and it's just like, again, it's just easy. You know, most of
yeah,
us when we are
it's
growing up,
convenient.
yeah, it's convenient. Most of us when we were growing up, it's like if you didn't have cable, you just had a TV with an antenna, and you got maybe like 6 or 7 channels, and
Yeah,
you probably watch, you probably did the same thing, cartoons like Saturday morning, and you'd watch Looney Tunes or something like that. But
yeah,
now it's like you can, whatever you want to watch, you can pretty much get it at your fingertips, right?
yeah, yeah. And then since it's like from one video to the next, you might start them off watching something that is okay with you, and then two shows later, it'll be something completely different. Um, One of the things that I did not too long ago is our grandson was watching. I thought he was watching a monster truck video.
Mhm.
So, and I was making breakfast and stuff like that while he was on his high chair and stuff like that. So I turned around and then I turned back around and my wife goes, "What are you letting them watch?" And it was like monster trucks crashing, going into flames and stuff like that. And it just turned like real violent real quick. And it
Yeah.
just goes to show you that, you don't pay attention for a little bit and then, the next thing you know, they're watching something completely different. So
Hmm.
that convenience is a good thing for sure,
Hmm.
but it's a bad thing at the same time.
No, yeah, and that is a good point. That, yeah, if you're not paying attention, and you could start them off, you're watching a video about colors and ABCs. Next thing you know, you hear a different sound. A few minutes later, like, wait, what was that? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's happened. But we're seeing that a lot of the kid shows or things that are meant for kids now definitely have some agendas, right, that go beyond entertainment. What we were
Oh
talking
yeah.
about last time is specifically, like, we want to stick with cartoons, talk about kids cartoons right now. Um, Cartoons are make believe characters. It's not real world. Um, it it should just be innocent fun. Whatever the little characters going through in that little episode should be innocent fun. But what we're seeing now is a lot of the cartoons now have certain agendas. So they have real world agendas in make believe characters. programming.
Mhm.
and and sometimes, like we said before, the agenda is subtle, where you might not notice it, or maybe not think much of it, but at the end of the day, it does end up planting seeds, right? And sometimes the agenda is in your face. So I notice sometimes when we go to watch something, or you try to watch something that you haven't watched before, and you want to watch it as a family. Nowadays, it's a little, what do you call it?
Risque.
Yeah, it's a little risky because you just don't know what's gonna pop up, right? And most of the time, those sort of things pop up unexpectedly. It's
Yep.
not in some scenarios, it's advertised as this is what we're doing with this movie or this show, and then a lot of times they don't advertise that part, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, just there's a scene there that it's like, well, I didn't really want to go into this right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And right now you said programs, and someone brought this up to my attention a while ago, is that the reason that they call it television programming is because that's what they're doing.
Hmm.
They're putting something in front of you, programming you. So just something interesting that I had heard in the past that made quite a bit of sense, but it might have a completely different meaning, but it, it's kind of weird, the word choice there,
Yeah.
TV programming. But um, and going back to what you just said right now about messages being subtle and or right in your face, in my opinion, growing up watching TV, the messages were a lot more subtle in the past.
Hmm.
For the most part, those characters in cartoons, TV shows, TV series, and stuff like that. The message wasn't so much out in your face. And a good example of that right now is with the whole Balenciaga thing going on,
Hmm.
is that they got caught in a photo shoot, merchandising, with the BDSM messages and the court documents for pedophile cases and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Is that those are I guess to me those are like right in your face because they're in those photographs, and everybody sees them.
Hmm.
And in the past, I don't think they uh, labels, fashion labels and stuff like that would actually try to get away with putting that right in your face.
Hmm.
But you can kind of see what they're trying to do right now. And of course, they got called out on it, and people started doing a little bit of research on the past uh, advertisements that they had done before,
Hmm.
and they've been finding a bunch of stuff that they've been putting in those messages too, and those photographs and those set designs and stuff like that. So they're not out of the hot water anymore, and because they're not so subtle, parents they're pretty upset about it.
Yeah.
They're not letting this one go. They were
Yeah.
trying to sue the set designer for, I think it was like 24 million or something like that, trying to
Wow.
say that they didn't know about it.
Hmm.
What this set designer was doing, but they ended up dropping the lawsuit because, in my opinion, they couldn't defend all the other past, set designs that they have used because they've been finding the same thing. So this has been going on for a minute, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's like you said, it was, in a sense, it was in our face, but it was subtle too. So where people didn't didn't look for it, right? But once that really, that whole thing with the, what was it, the BDSM teddy bear, right, and the kid, and then once they start
Yeah.
looking at all the other props that are laid out in that setup right there for that
Yeah.
picture,
Hmm.
you really start to see what they have in there, and you start questioning, like, okay, yeah, like you said, why is the paperwork for this specific court case here has to do with pedophilia, and it's a kid photo shoot? Like, you start questioning things like that. and seeing it, and yeah, they definitely can't get away from it now because it's there. They've been planning those things there, so I I'm guessing they wanted someone to find that, right? I mean, why would you continue? Or they just thought, wow, nobody's can't believe nobody's noticing. You know what I mean?
I think
Weird.
it's almost like an insider uh, group uh, inside joke, if you
Inside
will,
joke, yeah.
because they all know it. They all see it. Like if you're part of that group and you see those pictures out there, you'll pick up on it and you'll know. And they probably tell them like, watch, wait until you see what we just did right now, and then
Mhm,
they'll be able to see all the little secret messages that they have in there.
mhm,
And one of the things about today's technology is that we can use it against them. I mean, we're using it against them right now. Video, doing this podcast
mhm.
and talking about it and making it public. So that's exactly what people do now. Is that if they see something that they don't like, or that they know that it is wrong, they'll say something about it. They'll put it out there. They'll put it out in their social media and won't let it go.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I noticed with this specific topic is that when you start, and I've told this to my wife before, is that people will tolerate so much, but when you start messing with people's kids and money to where it really affects them,
Mhm.
I think those are the like those that's the sand in the line. That's the red line,
Yeah,
if you will.
yeah,
That they'll stand up and say something about it and actually start voicing their opinions a lot more than just sitting back and taking it.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. Because like we had said before, right? And everybody knows this is your kids are the future. So when you see things like that affect kids, or in a sense could affect kids negatively, yeah, you gotta stand up because we don't want certain things to get normalized.
Mm.
And especially when we're talking about this specific case, and what they were doing in those pictures and what they had in that setup. It's a lot of you know a lot of weird things that
A lot of sick things.
that
Mm.
shouldn't be near kids, or shouldn't be, how could I put it, associated with kids, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, you're taking away their innocence.
mhm,
So
yeah, and
once someone's innocence is taken away, that's it. You can't give it back.
yeah, and and again, it's kind of repeating, but we've said before, it's like we're dealing with people that don't have any morals or any values. So a lot of the stuff too is really satanic, real demonic,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I think too that people try to cover that as, oh, just trying to be fashion, and trying to be set trends or something. I don't know what they want to call it, but it's some real demonic stuff that shouldn't be associated with kids. And like you said, if we notice it and we see it happening, it's like, yeah, we got to speak up about it, and we got to, there's that line in the sand that we have
Mm.
to make sure that, right, they can't cross this line. And for everybody, regardless of your, I would say, regardless of your political beliefs, or whatnot, there's certain things where it's like when it comes to kids, it's a big no-no on all sides. That
Yeah. It's
shouldn't
a
even be,
no-go zone.
yeah, that shouldn't
So,
be anything that divides. It should be something that unites everybody and goes, nah, you guys cross this line. No, no way. Um,
yeah.
and the Balenciaga thing is one of those things where celebrities kind of have their influence there, because these brands use celebrities to send their agendas and to
Yeah.
send their message out. And part of this conversation too is what celebrities do as well to help push agendas and get certain stances out. So, so it is tied into what we're talking about, and in this sense of this case, they use kids by a brand that uses major, well, if you want to call them major or whatever people might think of them as influential celebrities
Mhm.
to push their marketing, right? So,
Yeah.
and now it's like this thing happens, and celebrities distance themselves, and a lot of the times it's not even a genuine distancing. It's just like, oh man, I don't want to lose out on something. I can't be associated with them now. But again, when you've seen things from the past, it's like, well, that's all been there, and it was you were okay with it because they weren't in trouble, kind of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but the problem with this one is this is that if someone says something about um I don't know, firearms or something like that, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's an uproar. All the celebrities, all the A-list, B-list, C-list, D-list
Yeah.
celebrities go out there and they denounce it, and they're completely against it, and they don't wait an hour
Yeah.
before they go tweet it out or put it on Instagram or wherever the heck they want to go to social media and voice their opinion.
Hmm.
But I don't think you can count in your hand how many of these celebrities have denounced Balenciaga after all of this has come out. Maybe they said that they're going to think about distancing themselves, but there hasn't been an uproar.
Yeah.
So it kind of lets you know what type of control they're under, or maybe what they're into.
Hmm.
So you should be questioning yourself, and if you're going to be supporting them by wearing their clothing, the clothing line,
Hmm.
or listening to their music, or going and seeing their movies, or watching their TV shows.
Yeah.
So, are we supporting these people that have sick ideas, uh, with pedophiles?
Hmm.
We have to think about that. And then the other thing too is that it just shows you how everything is connected. I use the example of uh, when okay, so when you go into a supermarket,
Hmm.
we're given the illusion that we have options because we'll go down an aisle, and then if we want to go buy some bacon, we'll see five different brands
Hmm.
of bacon, right?
Hmm.
So we're given the illusion that we have five different options of bacon. And then we start looking at two of the brands and they happen to be owned by the same company. We look at the other two or three brands and they're owned by a different company. But then you start following the pyramid of who owns those companies. And at the top, it's the same company, and it's the same group of people that own all of the companies. So we're given the illusion. So that's just a small example with that. But it goes from industry to industry too. The people that have their hands in the fashion industry also might be, tied with politicians.
Hmm.
And you've heard so many stories where they're brother-in-laws or sisters or cousins and
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff like that. So it's all interwoven,
Hmm.
and it just shows how connected everything is.
No, yeah, and then that's a good point because especially in kind of what you're talking about, that chain, especially in media, right? A lot of channels that you watch are owned by the same media company. So you might think you're watching, you have a list of different channels, but at the end of the day, there's, I believe, three or four major media companies that pretty much run everything. So whatever, kind of to what you're saying, whatever agenda they're on, it's like you don't have the option to switch to something else because, well, they're owned by the same people, and that's how it is in media, social media. um and just to kind of what you were saying about celebrities, and how none of them have really come out and, yeah, denounced what's happened with Balenciaga, right? And as soon as they see something that they might deem controversial, or some sort of incident where, like you said, they don't wait for the evidence to come out or all the facts to come out. What I think is the reason you see that reaction first is because they're just virtue signaling, right? Virtue signaling can get them, when it comes to these big corporations, it'll get them noticed more, which I think gets them the opportunity to get more opportunities to make money, right? So if they react to a shooting, or if they react to, you know, an incident that occurred right away, all these major corporations see, okay, this guy's pushing the agenda we're on. So I think that provides them opportunities. I think that's why some of them react. If I'm being, be honest, I think it's driven by money. Um, and denouncing Balenciaga, there's no there's no gain, personal gain in that. Like, as far as monetarily, I think money has a lot to do with it. So I think that's why you kind of see those reactions for those kind of things, but not the things they should be, you know, they should be speaking up about. You just don't hear it. And
Yeah,
that's my little, my theory or my opinion on. I think it's motivated by the potential to make money.
yeah, that's true. I mean, it could be one of those things where if they're tied with them, like I was saying, then that's the reason why they do it. And then to your point, if they want to be tied to them and gain financial opportunities, then that's the part where, you're talking about, where they would go in and try to take advantage of the situation and jump into bed with them, if you will,
Hmm.
uh, that way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's tough because there's rumors and I guess conspiracy theories about the news networks having their 4 a.m. talking points. I don't know if you've heard
Hmm.
that before, but
Hmm.
they have some pretty neat YouTube clips where, let's say, a shooting happens or some sort of abuse happens, with the police or something like that, and they splice together sound bites of news anchors from across the country with the same line, and it's almost, a lot of the times it's like word for word,
Hmm.
what they're saying on one side of the country and what they're saying on the other side of the country, and what they're the conspiracy theory is that these news networks around 4 a.m. get the script
Yeah.
of what they're going to be pushing for that day or for the next couple of days or whatever the case may be. But it's funny because if you watch these clips where they've spliced them together, it's not one or two, it's it's hundreds.
Hmm.
It's hundreds of news anchors that are literally saying the same scripted lines word for word.
Hmm.
And when I say word for word, I mean like
Verbatim. Yeah.
word for word, verbatim,
Yeah.
exactly. So, it's one of those things where you can think that it's just coincidence, but there's a certain point where, mathematically impossible just to be coincidence, when it
Yeah.
happens
And
as much as it does happen.
yeah. And I think, though, that proves the point that we were talking about, when you gave the example of the going to the store and buying bacon, right? And it's all the same brand. Well, that right there it's a literal example of what we're talking about, especially with news, because that just shows you that whatever the parent company is, send that out, and now you have all these news stations reporting the exact same thing word for word. So, like, if you find those on YouTube, it's proving the point that you might think, oh, I'm gonna watch this channel or this channel or this channel, and at the end of the day, they have the same talking points, because chances is they're owned by the same parent company. So, that's kind of an example that proves what we're talking about, as far as that chain and how they're all linked together. And So
Well, here's the other thing too is that you've brought up the point that Latinos like us growing up watching Univision, Telemundo, and in Televisión Azteca, I think it is.
yeah, I think that's the third one. Yeah.
Yeah, is that it's the same thing with them too.
Mm-hmm.
It's we're being fed the same scripted lines that they're getting fed in the English networks.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find comical, I'll say that I find comical, is that I can go ask my aunts and uncles, mi tíos, mi tías, and ask them, hey, do you think that the Mexican government is corrupt? And before I'm done asking the question, they're like, oh yeah, 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 sí, 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 sí es corrupto todo eso.
Yeah.
And then when we see all these things as Latinos here in the United States, is I'll ask the same question: do you think the United States government is corrupt? And oh no, 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 no puede ser. And why is it that they know and feel and believe that the Mexican government is corrupt, but it's not possible for the American government to be corrupt?
Mm-hmm.
Is because they do a good job hiding it and putting all these different uh, you know systems of manipulation in place
Yeah.
where we we just believe it hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we were talking about Univision and them. It's like if they get all their info from there, is those three major Spanish channels all lean in one direction. They all lean to the left, and the programming that people that only speak Spanish, for example, everything that they are exposed to for as far as entertainment, news, sports, whatever is on those channels. So they're just exposed to an agenda that maybe doesn't have them believing that this country could be, you know, or the government could be corrupt at all. Because it's also one of those things where what was I gonna say? It's one of those things where the amount of opportunity that you do have in this country, it it might make it seem like, okay, yeah, this government isn't corrupt because the American dream. You come here and you can
Mhm.
work and make money and make a better life, right? Um,
Yeah,
so I think that's also part of the reason they might not feel that it could be corrupt because of the amount of opportunity here. But it's hard for them to ever come to that realization because where they get their news source from, for example, it isn't going to report any of that. They only do
yeah,
report though things that again lean to the left, that have Latinos or Spanish speakers that aren't, you know, too and that aren't, how could I put it, aren't getting a different side. Then they get manipulated.
oh, yeah,
They get
yeah,
shown things that have them tugging on their emotions or their pride, because everyone's prideful to be Mexican American or Mexican or wherever they're from, right?
yeah,
And what the news has done, and even entertainment, the shows you watch, the entertainment news that they might have, um, they all lean one way. And one thing that the other day I was thinking is like, well, how can I put this in Spanish, right? So the best way I could say it in Spanish is how these, whatever it is, media, politicians, whoever manipulates them, is si alguien controla tus emociones, controla tus decisiones.
that's good.
So basically, what I just said, if you don't speak Spanish, is if someone controls your emotions, they control your decision. Because, as far as the media, especially in Spanish, that's what they're good at. I've noticed from when I've watched, is how they lean to one side, and they choose topics that get people upset, riled up. I think you had said that a few minutes ago. Things that rile people up and get people, you know, upset and moving. The Spanish media channels definitely have mastered that.
Oh yeah. Excuse me, I had a cough. No, but that's exactly what they do. They pull at the heartstrings,
Hmm.
and when you get so emotional, you're not making smart, um, mindful decisions. You know,
Hmm.
you're not thinking clearly. You're just going based off emotion. You know,
Hmm.
and they have the power to do that with editing videos and doing all these other type of stuffs, because what people don't know is that these news networks, they're constantly getting sued
Hmm.
for defamation, for altering video, audio, and all kinds of information like that.
Hmm.
And they get sued, and they have to pay out because they lose. But guess what? Their apology is buried behind, on the last page of the newspaper,
Hmm.
or they might have a little, snippet at the end when no one's watching the show anymore,
Hmm.
and they'll retract, their prior position, or whatever they ran at that moment that they have to call
Yeah,
back.
and the headline did all the damage already.
Yeah, and the worst part about it is that, so they lie, they get busted, they retract it very quietly, but everybody else keeps repeating that same line.
Hmm.
Everybody else keeps repeating that same line. Excuse me. So then you'll hear a politician regurgitating the falsehood that was said or shown on TV, and they continue doing the damage with it. I've seen this happen many times before,
Yeah.
and it and they don't care that it's happening. These networks, they can't be making that much money with as much that this fake news that no one's really watching anymore. Their ratings are going down and stuff like that. But that's what they're there for now.
Hmm.
They're not there, to introduce the truth and keep the people informed or keep the government true.
Hmm.
Before it was meant that journalists, held everybody accountable for, their truths or their lies, or, decisions that they were making, if it's a government or a politician or something like that. But now they're in their pockets, they're working for them,
Yeah, every
so they're out there just serving the agenda.
yeah, every journalist now just kind of has their biases out in the open, and you can tell. And it's funny too, because sometimes they'll be adamant. I'm not being biased. I'm just reporting the truth, and it's like you're not. We can see that you're not. Um, and like they don't care. It just happens, right? And then to kind of tie this back into the celebrities too, is they share a lot of those articles too, because they read them or whatever. Like I said, the headline does all the damage, right? So
Yeah,
they see the headline, boom, let's share this. And then celebrities are used to manipulate or push that manipulation to however, certain celebrities have millions of followers, hundreds of thousands of people, whatever it is, it's a lot of people that they have access to, within a quick little share or a quick little statement that they put out. And unfortunately, they do influence people.
yeah,
They shouldn't be, like we've said these past few episodes, is when it comes to influence, as a parent, you should be the biggest influence, not a celebrity, not an athlete, none of that.
yeah,
And unfortunately, though, they do influence young people, young adults, and whether they're pushing something that's, for example, pro-abortion, they can code it as, oh, it's women's health, women's rights, whatever they want to word it as, whatever deceiving words they want to put to it. it gets thrown out there, right? Like I think you had mentioned something about if they're anti-gun, if they can put
Mhm.
it out there because so and so, whatever excuse they give for it, but it is, since they have influence, manipulative, because a lot of those times they don't wait when it comes to news events or things that happen. Yeah, they don't wait for all the facts to come in. It's just reactionary, and when people react, it's just boom. You set a fire to whoever you're influencing, and then those people are upset, and then they're sharing it. So it just kind of just spreads and spreads and spreads, and celebrities in my celebrities and athletes in my mind help push a lot of that manipulation just easily through social media. That's how that's how I was saying they're all in a sense tied in together, because all three avenues, right? Whether it's four: TV, music, the celebrities, athletes themselves, and social media. They're all tied together because they all use each other to spread their messages, and a lot of the
Yeah.
times that those messages aren't 100% factual.
Well, that's the thing is it goes back to what I just said about the news networks is that they'll throw the story out there. It's either been manipulated, edited, or whatever it is that they do to sway people, pull at people's heartstrings, right?
Hmm.
And someone, I don't know what situation had happened or what incident had happened, but someone asked me what I thought about it, and it was fresh. It just happened in the last couple of days
Hmm.
from them asking me what I felt or what I thought, and I said I don't know. Let's wait until the facts come out.
Hmm.
It's one of those things where if I react without having all the information available to me, I'm just having an emotional reaction to what someone said, and that's it. But as most stories go, is that days go by, a week goes by, 2 week goes by. Oh, by the way, this is an important piece of information,
Hmm.
that happened at that day, and it completely changes the whole situation.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so there's stories where someone was arrested, and it turns out that the person that they were arresting had a criminal background and a long history
Hmm.
with the law, and and they were probably doing something wrong at the moment too, and those were all important details that had been left out.
Hmm.
And how convenient,
Yeah.
it's like we said earlier, the when the story first went out, the damage has been done.
Mhm.
The big fuss has already been done, and it's out there,
Yeah.
and it's already done the damage.
Yeah. And one of the events that I could think of recently, well, there's two. So this first one kind of goes into what we were talking about. Is I forget where exactly it was, but I don't know if you remember when there was a cop that shot a black girl, and everybody was kind of up in arms about it, especially celebrities, right? I think as soon as that video dropped or that news broke, I think LeBron James tweeted about the cop being a white supremacist or something like that along those lines, and without knowing, just reacting to it. But again, he's an athlete with a lot of influence, unfortunately. And what people didn't get right off the bat is the cop had to shoot her because she had a knife and she was chasing down another black girl. So it's like, is the cop just supposed to let that girl stab the other one, or is he supposed to take action, right? But those facts right there aren't as soon as it happens, they're not out there like you're saying, right? And then this guy over here puts his message out, and all it does is stir up the pot, makes everybody distrust, the police even more, and it's just reactionary, emotional, without knowing what really happened or why the cop did what he did, you know. And then another situation that happened that's well known, where I feel like there was a lot of manipulation that that happened with celebrities and athletes is when the George Floyd incident happened.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was one of those where, obviously George Floyd has had a huge criminal history. So, he was a drug user. It's just a fact. Like, the police knew who they were dealing with when they approach him. It's not a somebody that hasn't had issues with the law before. It's someone you know, they knew basically. And the thing with that was that gave rise to the Black Lives Matter movement, which to me, if you ask me, that's one of the biggest manipulations in recent history because they used words that obviously, to say Black Lives Matter, it's like, yeah, Black Lives Matter. So do brown lives, white lives, everybody matters, right? And to use those words as to name your organization was something to manipulate people or to make them feel guilty, right? Or to make them feel
Well,
like
what it does,
we're really fighting.
it almost says that the opposite of what that term means is like, Black Lives Matter. They're basically saying that other people think that Black lives don't matter.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
so when you use those type of words, they're triggering words. They're triggering emotions.
Mhm. And it manipulates
Excuse me.
because you can't in a sense without
Dispute it
dispute it because
because it is true.
yeah, exactly.
They do matter. Of course, they matter.
Yeah. And that's where I'm saying, like, that's why I believe even just with the name, it manipulated a lot of people. And then you add that celebrity and athlete angle to it where now they start saying all this other stuff. And, you know, Black Lives Matter, they raised a lot of money on that incident with George Floyd. And
No,
I don't know who has or hasn't seen it, but Candace Owens did her documentary kind of related to the George Floyd incident, but she also went into the the taxes that BLM had done, and the money that they collected through George Floyd for Black Lives Matter, a lot of that money did not go to the Black community. That money went, they bought themselves homes, and most of that money got donated to trans organizations. So to me, it's like everybody, all the athletes that pushed it, celebrities, it's like none of that money has been used to help the Black community, right? So to me,
yeah,
like that's one of the biggest scams and manipulations that has happened.
yeah. Um, I saw the documentary, and if you haven't seen it, you should see it because classic manipulation,
Hmm.
pulling at your heartstrings. And we were talking about this in the past too. Is that when we started talking about our conversations here, the first thing that came to mind is the word manipulation, and it's crazy because as we have been talking about this, you and I, Daniel,
Hmm.
I've I've heard so many other people use the word manipulation, um, whether it's celebrities or people um, that come up on feeds, on Instagram or
Hmm.
YouTube and stuff like that. Is there's so many people talking about this manipulation, and it's awesome to see that so many people are identifying it and are talking about it. So the fact that we're talking about it and pointing it out, and hopefully everybody is starting to see it, that's awesome.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I would like to point out, and you and I have talked about, is if you look at schools, music, TV, movies, and
Hmm.
sports, where do all those lean? Schools lean to the left.
Hmm.
Okay. Music, musicians lean to the
Yeah.
left. You watch TV series, they lean to the left.
Hmm.
You watch movies, they lean to the left. You watch sports, they lean to the left.
Yeah.
All the commentary, the athletes and stuff like that. And it's like, is it a coincidence? I don't, excuse me. Is it a coincidence or is there a pattern there?
Yeah.
These, we've talked about it before. These athletes, these movie stars, these musicians, they get signed.
Mm-hmm.
They get signed by people, and they have to fall in line. They have to, they're given
Yeah.
instructions in order to get paid and stuff like that. And they've got handlers. Everybody knows that. I've heard musicians talking, celebrities, period, whether it's a movie star, and they'll say, "Oh, my
Mm-hmm.
handler," and it's like it's not subtle anymore. It's like these people don't have an original thought anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at the patterns, and you can see where all of this is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's one of those things, kind of what you're talking about right now, is, as an example, is you know, recently with Kanye and his whole situations with getting dropped by brands and all that, and dropped by labels, is, he's been saying that too, that it's like, well, everyone has a contract, and you have to stay in line to keep that contract, and if you're staying in line, that means you're getting paid. So yeah, a lot of these artists, celebrities, or whatnot, they are controlled by the contracts that they're signed under.
Yeah. So these are the people that influence us or influence our kids, and we really have to think about if we want to allow that. We talk about the convenience of the tablets, iPhones, and stuff like that, and we have to make a change and make sure that we are the biggest influence in our kids' lives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the only way that we're going to be able to do that is by, I hate to say this, but not be lazy
Mm-hmm.
and allow that convenience factor to take over.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it because we get, as parents, we all know we get busy. We get home from work. Maybe you're tired, so it is easier. You know, it's an easier route sometimes, but we can't make it the habit, right? The everyday thing. It's like we have to be involved as much as possible. And even though things like that are, not to say that they're all bad, it's just, in a sense, you have to have it, have some control to it, or some limits to it, because what what's out there, what you can get exposed to, your kids, your family can get exposed to, is not something that is going to be beneficial to them. And it's not going to help set them up too for different situations. Like, I think we're talking about, sometimes when you go to the restaurant, you give your kids a phone to keep them calm, or for them not to be disruptive. It's like
Mhm.
it's not benefiting them, because they should be learning how to be respectful, and just, how could I put it, just be behave right while you're in public, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it goes back to the parents being that influence. Is like the parents' job is to teach the kids how to behave
Mhm.
in those type of situations, in those scenarios, right? And if we just give them the phone or give them the tablet, we're not doing our job as parents.
Mhm.
We're giving into that convenience. Here's the phone, be quiet,
Yeah.
behave, type of thing. And there are things that we can do. For example, before we go into the restaurant or something like that, we look at the kids and tell them, look, we're leaving the phones in the car. We're not going to take them inside.
Hmm.
Making little adjustments like that, where they know that they're not going to be able to get that phone or that tablet, we can totally make that. I mean, we're all smart.
Hmm.
We just have to be conscious of what we need to do
Yeah.
in order to do it.
Yeah.
Period, and make a plan for it. We can totally do that.
And that could be one of those instances where, that you could take advantage of and have conversations with your family and
Yeah.
spend time with each other, whether it's talking about your kid's day at school or your day at work or whatever it is. It gives you that opportunity, right? Instead of just turning to something that's a little bit more easier to, it's an easy fix. Here, take the phone.
Yeah.
It like I said before, it's not going to be beneficial in the long run. And part of the problem, with kind of with these topics we're talking about is, a lot of the times these things are used because, like I had mentioned before, like you want to do these things with your family. You want to spend time with your family, right? You want to watch a movie and be entertained, kick back with the family. You want to watch sports and, again, just sports, whatever entertainment. You just want to relax, right? People want to use that time sometimes as a family to just chill.
It's unity. It's to be
Yeah.
united and spend time together.
Hmm.
But that's that's the that's the big part, is that this technology, TV, music, excuse me, sports, it's good entertainment. It's there's nothing wrong with it.
Hmm.
We're not trying to say that there's anything wrong with it. What we're saying is that it's been, for lack of a better term, infiltrated,
Yeah.
by these people, these corporations, these politicians. It's just been infiltrated, and instead of being that good, wholesome fun,
Hmm.
it's it's negative. It causes division.
Hmm.
Look at sports. I used to watch football, basketball. I was really into it. I mean, we would go to games together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would take my kids and stuff like that, and go tailgating at football games and stuff like that. It was awesome. And then all of a sudden, it just starts getting hyperbolic. With politics, it's
Hmm.
to the point where we all know about Colin Kaepernick and the whole kneeling situation.
Hmm.
It pits teammates against teammates and stuff like that. And you could see it out on the football field.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
affecting the game.
Yeah.
That's when I said, I'm done with this.
Hmm.
And same thing with basketball. So instead of uniting people, it's dividing people. Now it's a tool to divide people.
Yeah, now you start having political debates whether you agree on whether they're kneeling or not, and this or that. Then you start debating about police brutality and like just all this stuff that it's like you're saying, right? That's not why I'm watching this. You know, I'm watching this because it's a sport, right? The game I like to watch, and it's entertaining. It's exciting. Right? If you're there in person, it's even more exciting to see it. Live in person.
Yeah,
But the like you said, they've gotten so infiltrated with these agendas that it makes it really, like in your case, right? You don't watch it anymore. It just makes it hard to watch too, because it's
yeah,
always in your face. Especially now, if you watch a football game right now, you'll see. I think on the end zones they have end racism or something like that, right? And it's like, you know, it's to me, it's
it's nonstop, man.
yeah, it's
It's
nonstop and
nonstop.
it's unnecessary. I mean, again, it's not
Yeah,
the appropriate spot for it. You know what I mean?
yeah, and they're losing tons of money. There's so many people that have stopped attending games, watching games, and stuff like that.
Hmm.
They're losing a lot of money. They know it. They're addicted to pushing their message, and they're not going to stop until they completely fail and go bankrupt. And that's what we have to do. We have to show them our power with our pocketbook.
Hmm.
If, that's why with these celebrities, there you have these agendas that are evil. We need to stop supporting them, make them hurt in their pocketbook, and then we will get the change that we want. People don't agree with this.
Hmm.
I bet you ask 10 people if they want to see politics in their sports, movies, television shows, music, they're going to tell you, hell no.
Yeah.
I'll listen to politics if I want to hear politicians.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. For sure.
And then another thing that, excuse me, that I noticed is that before, as far as politics goes, people were a little bit more understanding about other people's positions,
Mm-hmm.
and they understood that it was okay to have different opinions and feelings about certain positions.
Mm-hmm.
But now, with the way people react in social media, news, and all the everything that we're talking about, the way that they react has family members not being understanding of other family members,
Mm-hmm.
difference in opinions. Now it's like, you know what, I'm not going to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
As opposed to before, they respected everybody's individual uh, thoughts and decisions and opinions.
Yeah. And like we've said, right, that they've accomplished their goal in dividing the family. Because
Yeah,
yeah, if you have family members that won't even talk to you because maybe you think differently or you don't agree with certain things, it's like, yeah, before it would have been no problem, but now it's like it ends relationships with family, friends, or whatnot, and it's pretty dumb that it's gotten to this point. But that's kind of where we are, and that's kind of what we want to, in a sense, help stop, because
pointed out too.
point it out,
Was
and like we were saying, or like we've been saying, is it's all right to have conversations. And because if you do have these conversations as adults, as friends, as brother, sister, whatever, you get a better understanding of each other. And even if you don't agree after the fact, at least you can see, okay, this is where you're coming from, this is where I'm coming from. And you might find some spots where, yeah, you probably do agree more than not. But if you don't have conversations, you're just going to let the outside world manipulate and divide.
Yeah, 100%. And one other thing too is if you're listening to this and you have doubts that there is an agenda out there, and we're kind of just paranoid or whatever you may think, think about this. Think about this, and I pointed it out before, is that when Passion of the Christ and that the Jesus series came out on a network,
Hmm.
it had record breaking numbers as
Hmm.
far as um, people that were watching it or the amount of money that it made. So if they're so successful and you have all these business people in TV and in the movie making industry, don't you think that they would make more movies about that? Don't you think that they would make more TV series about that in order to cash in and make money on it?
Yeah, if they're in the business of making money, yeah.
So now ask yourself, why there's so many horror movies out there? Why are there so many demonic TV series out there?
Mm.
I ain't watching those things. I would start watching an episode of what's that terror one that I was telling you about,
Oh,
the
American Horror Story.
American Horror Stories and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, that someone in a YouTube video or something like that posted the ending of one of those episodes, and it was a witch that was going to be burned on the stake.
Hmm.
And they asked her if she had any last words, and she said she screamed out Balenciaga. And I guess
It's
there's a meaning
Valenciennes
behind,
in Latin
yeah,
or something
something
like
like
that.
that. It depends on how you spell it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so people started looking back in those things, and they started seeing, they started making connections on that.
Hmm.
But my point is this, is that Netflix is failing because no one is watching what they're putting out there. And if they're putting up, these type of TV series,
Hmm.
why are they continuing to put out these series that are, demonic or evil or however you want to interpret them, and not making money?
Yeah.
they want to continue to put this in our faces, and they don't care about whether they're making or losing money.
No, and just to kind of prove that point is, I think a lot of people, if you know the Toy Story movies, those animation movies were, some of the most popular ones that, Disney has made, Toy Story. And they redid, or not, they didn't redo it, but they made a movie about Buzz Lightyear, right? And in that one, there was supposed to be a LGBT character or something like that. So what happened? It didn't make money. They lost money.
The flop
It
didn't.
flopped. You had that one movie with the, I forget that comedian's name, where nobody went to watch it because it was an all gay cast with all gay scene. And then, his excuse is because everybody's a bigot. It's like, man, that's not our, a lot of people, that's not their thing. They don't want to go watch that. It's not about being a bigot. It's just, I don't want to watch that. You know what I mean? They have, what else is it? I think Disney just put out a movie where they have the first like open uh teen gay character, and like nobody watched it. So it's like, just to kind of what you were talking about, the other side of it that kind of proves what you're saying is, when they make those movies with these agendas and people know that these agendas are in there, people don't go watch it because they don't.
We don't want to be force fed something.
Yeah.
You try to force feed someone something they don't want or they're full already. You can't make them eat it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not going to consume that.
Yeah.
We're not going to go out there. I'm sorry. You can call us whatever you want to call us, but
Yeah. And
it, the beauty of capitalism is that if you're trying to sell a pile of garbage,
I don't have to buy
no
it.
one's going to buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And if you have a good product, everybody's going to want to buy it.
Right.
So let's get this straight. You don't have a good product.
But the stupid
don't wanna
part
watch
is,
it.
like you said, right? If they're in the business of making money and profiting, it's like, why do they continue with these things, these shows, these movies, whatever, that nobody's watching? It's like, when is it? Probably they don't care. I guess, obviously, right? They don't care that they're losing money. Maybe they're in business for other reasons, and obviously, right? And it just makes zero sense to continue to put out products that aren't getting any attention, or aren't even getting you your what you invested in it back.
Yeah. Well, check this out. So I've shared this with you in the past, and I've shared it with other people in the past. I shared it with my wife. So growing up, I really didn't listen to lyrics of music too much. Of course, I listened to the lyrics, but not in depth.
Mm-hmm.
If something had a good beat, I would listen to it because it had a good beat going to it, and it sounded good in the car.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
one, I'm a fan of Rage Against the Machine in the sense, their music is good, but then you start listening to some of the lyrics, and one that caught my attention is this, and I'm gonna read the line. So this is the lyric right here. I'm deep inside your children. They'll betray you in my name. Okay, so I'm gonna say it again. I'm deep inside your children. They'll betray you in my name.
Mm.
So when I finally opened up my ears and I heard that, and I got started young as a dad, and I was like, wow, that is some like evil
Mm-hmm.
genius thing to say or think or do, because it's like, screw you. I can't get you to come over on my side, or you're my enemy, but I'm going after your children,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going to betray you in my name.
Yeah. and that we haven't really talked about it yet, but music is again with the lyrics. If you're not paying attention to them, they can really manipulate or plant seeds into whoever is listening to that music. And the music today, especially if you want to talk about like rap music or any music in general, right? Music really influences the culture. So
Yep.
how people want to live or what lifestyle they might think is cool, what's not cool. Um, and a lot of for example, especially in rap, it's all about drugs, sex, healing,
Thug life.
just
Yeah.
just the life that you know it is not in the music. I guess you could say they might make it sound glamorous to people, but if you listen to the lyrics, it's like there's nothing good about what's being said in these songs, right? And
Yeah.
then just to kind of go back to the one you're talking about, it's like, yeah, if you hear that as a parent, you go, okay, well, you know, I'm, I'm not listening to them. Neither is my kid, especially my kid. So,
Yeah.
but it's crazy because in a sense, they're telling you there, we're gonna manipulate your kid.
Yep.
Like how else,
Yep.
how much clearer can that be that that's what they're telling you? It's not just me and you talking about it. Like that's an example of it in a song.
Yeah. So, obviously in the context that they were saying it, against the system or the people of the system, in other words, the government. But the message is still the same, is that nowadays, people joke around and say that, rage is
With them.
raging with the system
Yeah.
instead of against, rage against the machine, but it's rage with the machine because of how their political stances seem to have changed, over time. So now, if they had that mentality back then, in that plan back then, well, if I'm against what they're saying, now they're implementing that plan against me, type
Hmm.
of thing.
Hmm.
And that's the context that I wanted to bring it back into. But it's still crazy and it's deep, and that's what the system wants to do. It's manipulate our kids, turn our kids against us.
Hmm.
We can't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
And there's a conspiracy theory about the whole rap industry, that in the early 90s there was like this crazy meeting with all these music executives that had their hands in other businesses, and the other businesses were um, prisons,
Mm.
private prisons, and making money off of that and profiting off of people being incarcerated. So the conspiracy theory goes that they gave a bunch of rappers, contracts, and of course, in the contract, they had to produce albums, and I'm sure that in those albums, the lyrics were promoting violence
Hmm.
and things of that nature, thug life, if you will,
Hmm.
in their music, so that the young kids out there in bad situations, instead of making good decisions and to get out of a bad situation, they were making the wrong decisions, being influenced by those artists,
Hmm.
with the thug life, and ending up in those prisons. And guess what? The damn prisons are full.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean that that sounds very believable. You know what I mean? That more than likely was a goal, and that's what hip hop and rap has accomplished. And I believe it continues to do that, right? And I think we were talking the other day, and we were saying that for all these things, whether it's TV, kids entertainment or whatnot, rap music or any music in general, there are probably people out there that are better than what's out right now. There's better alternatives, but they probably don't get the opportunity or they don't get that exposure because they're not moving or staying in line with those agendas that these big corporations that run all these sorts of entertainment are pushing themselves, right? So to me, that theory does make a lot of sense, and yeah, it has. That's exactly what it has accomplished.
Yeah. I mean, I'll use myself an example is that growing up in the East Side in San Jose, it's not the, you're not being set up for success growing up in that area.
Hmm.
And a lot of people growing up there, their lives are a lot different from what mine ended up being. I'm not saying I have a great life or the best life or anything like that, but I think I've made good decisions and, have made a good life for myself. And it's all about the choices that you make,
Yeah.
you know? And if I would have, taken a route where it would have led me to violence or drugs or anything like that, hanging out with the wrong people, because believe me, I had an opportunity to hang out with the wrong people,
Hmm.
but I didn't,
Hmm.
And it's one of those things where you can make those decisions. We're not saying that people don't have an option, if they're growing up in a bad part of a city or a neighborhood or something like that, that they're doomed
Hmm.
for failure. You know, we're saying the exact opposite. You can come out of that.
Yeah.
The only thing is that the examples that are being put out there, whether it's everything that we're talking about,
Hmm.
music, movie, TV, it it's not good. What they're putting out there. It's not positivity that they're putting out there for us.
Hmm. It's just, again, going back to it, it's a lot of things that just divide. A lot of just negativity, division, um, lack of morals, lack of values, just things that go against, as we were talking before, your values, right? Your morals, with being responsible, uh, making responsible decisions, making informed decisions. Um, not putting yourself in a situation where, like you said, you could easily sometimes do things that will get you in change the trajectory of your life, in a negative way. You can make that bad decision easily. And everything that's out there right now is, I guess you could say, it's kind of pushing you towards that, or influencing you to want to do something that's negative because maybe in TV or in a movie or on a show or on a song it sounded cool.
Yeah.
And it's just that the manipulation is all there. And as we have said, is, and we repeat, is that's why you got to be the biggest influence, in your kid's life, the biggest influence in your whole family, because as your kids get older, as they become adults too, you know there might be instances where you still have to, as a parent, stay involved and hopefully try to, help guide your family in the right direction, right? Because as we said before too, is we all want our families, our kids to be in the best situations possible. Um, and and a lot of these avenues here that we've been talking about are really influential in a way where they're they're pushing a lot of negativity that gets normalized with these celebrities or with these people or with these shows. And it's like we have to not allow any of these things to be overly influential.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Coming up on an hour and 20 minutes right here, but I've told you this before based on that lyric, is that we know what they're doing. They're trying to take our kids. They're trying to have them betray us in their name, but it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We got to be vigilant and make a conscious effort so that that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be committed to that. And that takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of attention to our kids, families. So we have to make that promise to ourselves that we're gonna do that and not allow that to happen. I'm telling you one thing right now, that is not happening in my household.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A hell no.
Yeah. No, I mean that's well said. Like you said, you gotta, you know, pay attention and put your foot down, and exactly what you said, man. Like we can't allow that to happen. And just kind of knowing or talking about these avenues and stuff like that, maybe people get to pay more attention to the programming, right? The word again, it's a good choice of words, right? The programming that their kids are exposed to, what they're exposed to, the music you're exposed to, and and paying attention to what's being said. And when you hear or see something that gives you no benefit, let alone your children, you got to put your foot down and say no, it's not going to happen here. Yep.
That's good, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think the next episode we'll get into more of the politicians and more into the news side of it. Obviously with some stuff that's happened recently with the whole Twitter files and all that, and how politicians use social media. We'll get into that one in the next one. But again, goes to show, right, that on all these topics that we've been talking about, all these avenues, all these tools, that there is manipulation. And if you don't see it or don't realize, you need to know that it is there. And once you realize it, you got to do your best to not fall for it.
Yeah, and see if you've been manipulated.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it happens, I'll admit. I'm pretty.
They had me.
They had me
They
when I
were
was younger.
manipulating me. I admit
Oh
it.
yeah. So if it could happen to us, yeah. But no, I mean, well, I think it was a good episode, a good conversation, and we'll keep them coming. This topic of manipulation is, like we said before, it's important, and it's important conversations to have. And at the end of the day, we want you guys, everybody that's listening, to have these conversations with your family. And hopefully, as a family, you're all able to learn. We're all able to learn as we go. And again, just try to make a difference and try to be influential and redefine what's important.
Yep.
All right.
That's the end game.
Yep.
End game.
Sure. All right, then, everybody. Well, we hope you enjoyed that one, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.